Welcome to the buy side with Todd Caputo and Frank Knox. Super pumped today to have with us Mr. Glenn Lundy, founder of the 800% Club. If you don't know me, I'm Frank Knox. I'm with Auto Acquire and Unique Auto, and Todd Caputo with Todd Caputo Consulting, who has a long history in the used car business. I think,
and the new car business too. Don't forget, I was a new car dealer.
That's right.
He likes to fly first class too. Just so you know, Todd's a first class flyer.
We'll get to that.
There you go. And so, look, today we're going to spend some time really chopping it up with Glenn and understanding more about the buy side. The decisions that impact dealers, the decisions that are made behind the scenes. And today we're going to spend some time talking about how do you grow your business. But before we even do that, I'm going to kick it over to Todd, because we're gonna dive in and we're going to talk about how do you grow your family, how do you grow your leadership, how do you grow your spiritual life, and that is more important than anything else that we can do in this lifetime. So, Todd, what do you got?
Glenn, first of all, let's just share with everybody how you and I actually met, because I think it's actually kind of funny. We joked about it a second ago. So do you want to tell the story, or do you want me to tell the story?
Yeah, go ahead from your perspective.
I
know my perspective.
I'm sitting on a plane and I get down, I sit next to this guy, and immediately this was probably what, 7, 8 years ago? It was a while ago.
Yeah.
Before I sold my stores.
Yeah.
And I'm reading automotive news, and this guy's looking over at my screen. And I'm like, you're on a plane. Sometimes you don't want people looking at your screen, right? This guy's looking at my screen.
Depends on what you're watching.
Yeah, exactly. And all of a sudden, he introduces himself to me, and I thought I recognized him, but I wasn't sure. So I don't know, brother. We just kind of hit it off, right?
You were going through a change, like you were going through a changing season, right?
I was, yeah. We met. I was. I think it was actually right around the time that I either sold or was going to be selling.
Yeah, it was right. You had just sold.
Yeah. So that was 5 years ago, and we hit it off. I think for a lot of reasons. And I think one of the reasons that we hit it off, that you and I talked about a little bit, that we might as well just get into now, was our faith, right? Like, we talked about the car business, obviously, like you always do, but we talked on the plane for a while, and we talked about our faith. And, I was impressed with the fact that you weren't afraid to speak it, and to talk about it, because not everybody does. Some people are afraid to bring that up in a conversation, but, you've got a big business. So if you don't mind, like, share with us, for those that don't know about who you are or what you do or your journey, just briefly share with us, what you do. And, let's talk a little bit about, really how the Lord has helped you, if you don't mind.
Wait. Before we go there, right, I got to know the other side of this story, because Todd, you told your side of the story, but Glenn, like, I got to know your side of the story as well. And I also have to know, like, was this conversation like in coach, and you guys were talking over somebody in the middle seat? Because I don't picture you guys being middle seat guys. Or were you guys in first class chopping it up? Glenn, what else happened there?
So, I always fly first, Frank. I always fly first.
All right.
I always fly first. I even had my own jet for a little while. We just sold the jet recently. I'm definitely not a middle seat guy. But at that time, man, I left. I've been in the car business since 1999. I've had what I call two different seasons in auto, right? So I had one season where I was at a Nissan Subaru dealership and did everything from salesperson all the way up to GSM, and that dealership never grew. It never grew at all. We were selling 120 cars a month when I started working there, and 120 cars a month when I left 8 years later. And then I had another season of life where I went from salesperson to GM at a Chevy store in Paris, Kentucky. And in that store, we grew 800%, which is where you'll see a lot of 800% around me. So we grew 800% in that. And I decided there was this one day, like we were at the top, man. We were we were crushing it. Second largest used car volume dealership in the country. I was the face of the dealership, doing a lot of things on social media. I had just started a morning show called Rise and Grind. I had just had my wife was pregnant with our 7th child. Wife was pregnant with our 7th child, and I decided to leave that dealership. And that decision came from the first vacation that I had taken in 8 years at that dealership. And it was a 9 days that I was off. And it started with a weekend where we had this event. It was called Hustle and Grind Con. And we had put together an event, and Eric Thomas, you guys know Eric Thomas? E.T., the hip hop preacher, #1 motivational speaker in the world.
Okay. Yes.
He says, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, that's when you'll be successful.
Yes.
So we had an event, and E.T. was there, and it was hosted by me, a guy named Sean Hayes, a guy named Dave Benson. And we did this event called Hustle and Grind Con. And at that event, Eric Thomas was on the stage, and he said, you think you're doing something because you taking care of your family? That's what you're supposed to do. You doing something when you can put food on the plate, on the tables of 100 families, right? And that just really hit. Like, and he started talking about how we have a responsibility to not just the next generation, but 3 generations, right? He was referring to some biblical premises. And so that like struck me. So here I am running this dealership, crushing it. We're at the top. We're winning at every level. Face of the dealership, making big money. Wife's 9.5 months pregnant. Eric Thomas talks about this. So then I go home and I spend the next 3 days with my family, just hanging out with the kids, staycation. And then that next weekend, there was a men's Christian leadership conference that I went to at Southland Christian Church, led by a guy named Scott Nickel. And Scott Nickel's on the stage, and he says, all you guys think that this flannel graph Jesus running around smiling, holding a sheep, that's who Jesus is. He said, no. Jesus was a warrior. Jesus flipped tables. Jesus went into areas where he was getting attacked on all sides, right? Jesus didn't just sit there comfortably and wait for people to come to him. He went out into the world and went to them. I'm like, holy smokes. So this all happens in 9 days. I go back to work. Been there 8 years. We're crushing it. We've grown 800%. The owner, there's 2 owners in the dealership. One that was my best friend and one that I worked with, right? And the one that I worked with calls me into his office, and he says to me, hey, Glenn, I don't like you. Those were his words. I don't like you. And I know what he meant. What he meant is he didn't like me doing all this social media stuff. He didn't like going to church on Sunday and people would say, man, that Glenn Lundy guy's really turned things around. Like that's what he didn't like. I knew what he meant. But what he said was, Glenn, I don't like you. And as soon as he said that, dude, for the second time, there's only been 2 times in my life where I've actually heard the voice of God. But for the second time, God popped into my ear. Everything else around me kind of was like Charlie Brown, wah, 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 wah. And all of a sudden I heard God, and he said, hey, Glenn, you can stay right here for the next 10 years and everything will be amazing. You'll have the house, the cars, the white picket fence. You'll make all kinds of money. Like, you can stay here for the next 10 years or follow me and let's see how far we can go. And so as soon as I heard those words, I waited for the guy across me to finish his rant, and with no intentions or no plan, I never thought I was going to leave this dealership ever. With no intentions and no plans, I quit my job. I said, hey, thank you, Dusty, for the most amazing 8 years of my life. I feel like this season just come to an end. And I quit. Everybody was shocked. I was shocked. My wife, who was 9.5 months pregnant, she was shocked. Everybody was shocked. And for the next year, I had no idea what I was doing. I just kind of floated around following God's call. And then the year after that is when I started 800% Club. And so here is where I meet Todd on a plane. I'm 2 years into this kind of journey where the first year floating, now I'm starting to figure a couple things out. And I was just following, man. And I meet Todd, and we sit down on a plane. I see he's got automotive news. It's easy to spot a car guy on a plane, by the way. We are not inconspicuous in any way, shape, or form. We are flashy sons of guns. We just put it out there. We're car guys. We're loud. We're obnoxious. We're all those things. So knew immediately he was a car guy, and we got to having a conversation. And I think what was most impactful about it for me is Todd was now headed into what seemed like a very similar journey that I was on. God had called Todd to do more. He had had a ton of success, just like I had had a ton of success, but God was calling him to more. So here was two guys, you know, both of us on this, like, where are we going? What are we doing? And Todd was like, man, talk to me a little bit about the consulting side, because I'm thinking about maybe doing some of that, and so on and so forth. So it was just divine timing for the two of us to be able to sit in those chairs next to each other at a season of our lives where we were both going through a big transition that a lot of people, you know, would be scared to death to go through.
Yeah, man.
You were going to see Matt Nimey.
I was going to see Matt Nimey. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
He was a great guy. Are you still working with Matt, by the way? You still working with this group?
Yeah. So, well, up until about 3 weeks ago. So Matt Nimey, we're still very, 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 very good friends, but he is no longer an 800% club as of about 3 weeks ago. But he's an incredible superhuman, man. I love Matt Nimey. Great guy.
Well, look, and I love something you said, and the one thing you said was, you know, and it's funny, it's eerily similar to a conversation we had when I was at Bible study on Thursday morning, my men's group, and we were talking about, you know, people following Christ and how, you know, some of it turns into, you know, they're following out of convenience because of what they heard Christianity was. And the one thing you said that I love, and I said those exact words in Bible study, is, look, guys, like, I'll tell people in a heartbeat that, look, my Jesus flipped tables. Like that's just how it is. And you know, one of the things that you said was that, you know, you had to have faith, and you had to put your trust in God for that journey. And I want to shift a little bit, because, you know, when you're walking into a dealership, when I'm walking into a dealership, Todd's walking into a dealership, you know, we're walking in because these folks have put their trust in us to deliver something. So tell me a little bit about how, you know, tell the crowd a little bit about 800%, and what that actually means operationally. But how do you use your faith to kind of guide those principles as you're going in and out of dealerships?
Yeah. So initially 800% stemmed from the result that we had gotten, right? We had grown 800%. And then once I kind of walked out of the dealership, floated around for about a year, I started dialing in, like, what actually happened in that dealership to cause us to grow 800%. Here we were in a population of only 9,600 people. It was a dealership that had been in existence for over 50 years. Like, obviously something dramatic had changed, and I wanted to get real clear on kind of what that was. And so I started breaking down. I actually ended up writing a whole book about it. The legacy title's 12 Proven Principles to Grow Your Dealership or Grow Your Business 800%.
I have that book.
What's that?
I said, I have that book. You gave it to me last year at a SodaCon.
Yeah, man.
I don't have one. Where's mine?
I'll send you one, Todd. I'll send you one. I'll send you a couple.
I'll see you at NADA. You can give it to me there. You don't need
okay, perfect. Yeah, we'll have some there. We'll be at the we'll be at NADA. We'll be at the MinQ booth. That's where my books will be. So I started outlining, like, what is it that we really did, right? Because it's not just having the right inventory. It's not just having the right marketing. It's not even just having the right processes. It's a combination of all those things mixed with something bigger. And so as I started outlining all of these steps, I started to realize that there's really like 8 kind of pillars of life that really matter, that when we invest in all 8 of those pillars, we tend to get incredible results, not just in our businesses, but in all these different areas of our lives, right? And so I'm like mapping it out. I'm like, okay, we didn't just invest properly in third-party leads, but we invested properly in every person in our organization. We grew humans. When you grow humans, all of a sudden they perform better. When you grow humans, all of a sudden they have different attitudes at work. When you grow humans, there's a different level of loyalty and commitment and intention. And so whenever I hear somebody, like I go into a new dealership and I hear them saying, I can't get my people to, do anything. I can't get them to make the phone calls. I can't get them to send the videos. I can't get them to prospect. I can't get them to follow a system. I can't get them to follow a process. My head immediately goes to what you're saying is you haven't properly developed the human to be able to plug them into a system, a process, whatever. And so those 8 pillars and the 8 pillars that we discovered, or that I discovered kind of going through this, and other people understand that there's different aspects of life. So I don't lay claim to fame for understanding these things, but sorting it out in a way that made sense for me was you have faith, number 1. If there's no faith, there's no growth. Period. Like business, life, family, whatever. Like you have to have faith that there's going to be, you have to have faith that there is something bigger than what you're experiencing now. And then B, you have to have faith in order to have hope. Otherwise, this thing called life can be a drag, bro. It can be a drag. You know what I'm saying? And so when I go into dealerships, we start off with some of the, to build trust and relationships, as you guys know, in any type of sales relationship, like you kind of got to give them what they want right out the gate. And so I go in and I'm like, hey, all right, here's what we're going to do with your website. And here's what we're going to do with your marketing. And you need to do this, so on and so forth. I kind of go in with that just so I can like speak their language, just like Jesus went in and spoke the language, right? And then once
you can also produce some instant results so you gain trust.
That's exactly right.
Right. Yeah. So if you all of a sudden, wow, that worked, then they'll trust you when it comes to the other things that you recommend.
That's right. Yeah. That's exactly right. So we get them some wins, gain some trust, we speak their language, and then we start doing the real work.
Yeah.
The real work is changing the way they
start. Let me push back on this a little bit. Not necessarily push back, but let me ask you a question, right? And I posted about this on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago. Developing people takes a lot of time, right? Sure. And it takes a plan. But the car business is a business of distractions, right? Like I was up in upstate New York, in my old hometown, doing some work with a dealer group up there. Actually, right in Matt Nimey's neck of the woods, to be honest with you. I was in Utica. And, I sat with 2 different used car managers, half the morning at one store, half the afternoon at another. And I remember this, right? Because I used to sit at the sales desk all the time. But when you are sitting at a sales desk at a dealership or as a service advisor or most other positions, you've got things coming at you all day long, nonstop, like just nonstop. And there's so many things that you are supposed to do, right? But you can't really manage proactively in a lot of cases. You have to manage reactively because there's just so much. There's the phone, there's text messages, there's the runner coming at you to find out where this car is and where the keys are to this. There's the salesman coming at you that wants to work a deal from yesterday from the people that they didn't close the day before. There's all these different things that happen, right? And you can put all the processes in place to have these quote unquote best practices, but being able to actually manage all of the chaos, I call it, is extremely difficult. So what I would ask you is, how do you train people, right, to treat other people like in a respectful way, like human beings, like Christ would teach us to be, when there's so many distractions all day long in a dealership? That's not something that's taught in a very short period of time. I would think that a dealer or dealer group that wants to do business with Glenn Lundy needs to understand that it is a long-term commitment, right? And I don't think every dealer wants to make a long-term commitment, at least from my experiences, as a dealer, number one, because it's going to cost you a lot of money, right? And you don't know if you're going to get a return on your investment or not. And number two, as dealers, I know, like, you want instant results, right? Like, I'm an impatient guy. Like, if I'm going to spend, X amount of dollars a month for quote unquote training, I want to see some results, right? We talked about a few of the things with websites and processes and putting this in place and that in place. When you're talking about developing people, that takes months, in a lot of cases, years. Like, how do you do it?
Yeah, really simple. And I'm glad that you brought that to the table, Todd, because we tend to complicate a lot of things in this business. That is for sure. And most of our dealers do see about a 25% increase in volume and profitability in the first 4 to 6 weeks, just by changing two very, very, very simple things. And the first one is, if you change the way you start your day, it'll make a massive impact in your life. So the very first thing, to answer your question, how do you grow and develop people? You do it in the morning. Because you're right. The text messages, the emails, all that stuff starts popping in. Everything's reactive after 12 o'clock. But the first 3.5 hours of the day in every dealership in this country, dead zone. What is everybody doing? Grabbing energy drinks, like drinking a whole lot of Monster or Celsius. If somebody's got to go get the breakfast run, we got to go get the pancakes and the sausage burritos over there. We're talking about Fortnite. We're recovering from our hangover, whatever the heck it is, right?
We're talking about what we're going to have for lunch at 9:30.
Talking about what we're going to have for lunch that day.
What are we going to get for lunch?
Very simple. Right out the gate is we change the way they start their day. That's number one. And I can break that down, what that looks like. The second part of it is, as we change the way they start their day, like you said, how do we really grow people? How do we get them to treat people with respect, so on and so forth, is we lead by example. Everything in my training and everything in my world, really, everything in my life is broken down into like acronyms and very simple systems and processes, because I saw a bag of McDonald's French fries before they're cooked. Have you ever seen a bag of McDonald's French fries, like the bag they come in at McDonald's? So on the bag,
I worked at McDonald's as a kid. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, so there's instructions on the bag of how to make the McDonald's French fries. What's the first instruction, Todd?
Open the bag.
Open the bag. That's the very first instruction on the bag at McDonald's. It literally says, open the bag, right? Yeah. Otherwise, if you just say put fries in deep fryer, somebody might put the whole dang bag in the deep fryer, right? So I'm about simple, very simple systems and processes. And one of the main ones, we call it the lead process, because everyone wants great leaders, but nobody knows how to duplicate leadership. So how do we duplicate it? Well, we dumb it down to a very simple process. Lead, L-E-A-D-D. People are like, wait a minute, there's not 2 D's on lead. There is in my lead, L-E-A-D-D. L stands for listen. We listen twice as much as we speak. Great leaders listen first, right? Mama told you, 2 ears, 1 mouth.
Yeah, where do you get that from? What book do we get that from, guys?
2 ears, 1 mouth. I got it from my mama.
Oh, about listening. The Bible.
Oh yeah, of course.
How many times does the Bible tell us in the Old and the New Testament to listen?
Anything that works comes from the Bible. That is for sure.
Amen.
So first we listen, then we encourage. The E stands for encourage. So after I've listened to Todd speak, I want to encourage and say, Todd, man, you're a great guy. I really appreciate what you just shared, or whatever. I want to encourage. And as an owner of a dealership, or general manager, or a leader in a dealership, we want to encourage the behaviors we want to see more of. So every morning meeting at 8:30 should start with you listening, which means you have to be the first one in the room, not the last one in the room. You got to be able to hear what your people are talking about. Then you encourage. Every meeting should start with, hey, we just got a Google review. Nice job, Frank. Here's the Google review. Let's read it. It says this, that. Oh, Todd did 2 leases yesterday. Way to go, Todd. Everybody clap and cheer for Todd. Every meeting starts with encourage. Then we advise. The A in lead stands for advise. Tell me what the heck I'm doing wrong, man. Tell me what, like, I need to know, but tell me in a very respectful way. Listen to me first, encourage me first, then tell me what I'm doing wrong, and I'll actually listen to you. Most managers go straight to advise. They walk into the meeting. Here's what you're doing wrong. Here's what you're doing wrong. Here's what you're doing wrong. And then they smack him on the butt and say, get out there and do a good job. Like, ain't nobody working for that dude. Ain't nobody following that dude. Ain't nobody. Everybody's trying to get out of that organization. So we listen first. We encourage second. We advise third. And then we develop. D stands for develop, the D in lead. Don't tell me what to do, but then not show me how to do it. Like, you have to take time to develop me. If you want me to get on the phones, do you know this? I'm sure you guys know this. The reason we put these things in place, make 20 phone calls and send 10 messages, videos, whatever the heck all the numbers are. The reason we put those things in place was they were supposed to be used as an educational tool so that we could teach people how to actually overcome objections. So we could teach people how to actually talk on the phone. But in today's business, what we got is we go, hey, I need you to make 50 phone calls. You know why your guy won't make 50 phone calls? Because you never taught him how to make a phone call. You just told him to make 50 phone calls. And so he goes and he calls his mom 49 times to check off the box because he doesn't know how to talk to anybody else.
No, let me add to that, right? So the training part, the teaching part is difficult, especially in a busy store, right? Like that's hard to do.
Right. You know, let me finish though, and I'll show you exactly where it fits. It's not hard. It's really, really, really simple. Listen, encourage, advise, and develop. And then the last D is daily. Do it daily. Listen, encourage, advise, and develop, and do it daily. 8:30 to 9 o'clock is where you have your morning meeting with everyone. Sales managers, finance managers, GSM, GM, everybody's in the meeting. 8:30 to 9 o'clock. I had a busy store. I was selling 850 cars a month. So I don't want to hear you're too busy to start off your day. That's not true. 8:30 to 9 o'clock, we have the morning meeting. We follow the process. Listen, encourage, advise, and develop. At 9 o'clock, the team splits up. The sales managers each have 6 to 8 people. Science has shown a good leader cannot lead more than 6 to 8 people. So you break your team up. So Frank's got 6 to 8 salespeople. Todd's got 6 to 8 salespeople. You guys are going to go out on the lot. You're going to walk the lot. You're going to do a trade walk. You're going to make sure you know where the auction cars are and every trade that came in. And then everybody's going to pull out their phone just like this. And you're all going to make a post together on social media. We're going to make our first post of the day as a team. Now we got an army of people making a post. Then Frank's going to take his team and he's going to go inside and they're going to sit down and they're all going to open their laptops and they're going to go through the CRM one by one and they're going to look at yesterday's deals. They're going to look at tasks. And instead of Frank saying, hey, sales guy, go make your calls, Frank's going to call and Frank's going to say, hey, Mrs. Johnson, I know you're working with Steve. You were here yesterday. You didn't buy a car. What happened? And then guess what? Steve's going to learn from Frank how the heck to close a deal. And Frank's working a deal, but Steve's right there learning. So we're training, but we're also being operational at the same time. It kills two birds with one stone. So we do that. 9 o'clock is the lot walk. 9:30, we're into the CRMs. At 10:30, now it's go out, pull up the cards. Who's got appointments? Make sure it's gassed up, so on and so forth. Managers hit the desk, and we're freaking rolling, man. Those first 2 to 3 hours of the day, that's where it's at.
So let me ask you a couple questions, Glenn, because one of the reasons we hit it off when we first started talking, somehow we got on the topic of faith, and then I told you about my 5 F's, and then you told me about the 8 principles, and then you gave me your book, right? And my 5 F's were simply put, faith at the foundation, right? You got to have faith, you got to have your fitness, manage your finances. And if you do those 3 things, that allows you to take care of your family and the friends that you have the way you're supposed to. That's right. So, and in my ecosystem, if I do those 5 F's religiously, I'm going to have a pretty good life. But I've established this sort of culture within, my family, within organizations. I try to put this culture into those organizations, right? What you're describing is this cultural shift. And I know you have principles that you go through, you have discipline, right? I know because you're up every morning, right? At 5:30 a.m., rise and grind is going on, right? Yeah. Right? Like
right here in the studio.
You don't listen to Glenn's show, Rise and Grind, every morning at 5:30 a.m., you probably need to, right? But then you also have your morning 5, right? Yeah. And these things have to happen every single morning. I say those things because you have them. I know Todd has them. We all have our own principles and we all have our own routines that we do religiously. We have our own ecosystem of how we're managing our life. When we step into dealerships, sometimes it can be painfully obvious that the culture is broken. And so I asked the question, what are some of the non-negotiables in a winning culture?
In the dealership specifically, it'd be everything that we just talked about.
Well,
You have a meeting at 8:30. At 9 o'clock, we walk the lot. We post on social media. At 9:30, we hit the CRMs. Like, those are all non-negotiables.
so when you think about that, so on the sales side, you're doing that. What about like is operations doing those same things?
They're doing the same thing. They're just a little bit different.
Department. So we talk a lot about acquisitions and, hey, if you sold one, go buy one, right? Like,
Yes.
we talk about all these things, and you have all these departments that are pulling each other one in a different direction or not. I remember being, purchasing department at CarMax for years and years and years. And we had a morning meeting, right, to recap what we bought and how we bought the day before. We had a 12 noon meeting when the closers came in. Hey, how'd the morning go? What morning duties still need to get done? How are we buying? What's the trends in the market? And then at 4 o'clock, before the openers left, we had another meeting, right, to talk about, again, the day and how things were going. But we had this culture of getting together. I don't always see that in stores.
Yeah.
I see a lot of sales meetings. I see maybe some operations meetings, maybe some meetings with the techs. I really don't see it in the acquisition department as much, but sales has it down in most stores I go into, but these other departments are somewhat disjointed. So I guess my question really, like, when you talk about the non-negotiables, like, I would think one of the non-negotiables is that all departments need to have that same culture, that same drive as a sales department, right?
Yeah, I think, and what I love about talking with you, Frank, is it always helps deepen and enrich the context of what we're doing. Sometimes I can just get a little passionate, and I need to slow down a little bit, really think about it. It's what I love about talking with you. What I see in the most successful dealerships around the country, businesses around the country, what I see is that they remove chaos and they lead with clarity.
Okay.
I once heard a quote. I never remember who actually said it, but it's the way I live my life. To be kind is to be clear. And if you're going to err on one side or the other, err on the side of clear. Right? So predictability is what most dealerships are missing. So therefore, there's confusion, which leads to chaos. Every department, every day, should know what's happening at 8:30, 9 o'clock, 9:30, 10 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. What's the system? What's the process? Like, super, super clear, right? When we were operating, my best day, Frank, Memorial Day weekend, we sold 100 cars on a Saturday, and we sold 98 cars on Monday, that following Monday. So I sold 198 cars in 2 days. We're closed on Sundays. That day that we sold 100 cars, we were done at 7 p.m., not a customer in the showroom. We started at 8:30 in the morning. We were done at 7 p.m., right? 100 cars is more than most dealerships sell in a month.
Yeah.
We did it in less than 12 hours because every single piece knows with clarity exactly what the systems and processes are, exactly how we operate, and what to expect at any given time. Anytime I see a dealership that's got broken culture, it's because there's confusion and chaos. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. Right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. If you ask 5 different people what the process is, you get 5 different answers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I always think about the military, and I like to refer to organizations. Earlier I referred to McDonald's, right? Because they've got a system that's duplicatable around the world. When you look at our military, could you imagine if our military operated like our dealerships do? Oh my gosh, we would not be a superpower. I'll tell you that, man. No, there is clarity, and everything's non-negotiable.
Yeah.
In the military. You're going to wake up at this time. You're going to make your bed this way. You're going to press your uniforms this way. You're going to march this way. You're going to clean your gun this way. You're going to have your guys back this way. And when we get out into battle, that doesn't change what all we've trained on. You are going to do all of the things we told you to do because we do it every single day. So it's super clear. And that's how you can build empires. So Cultures are built through clarity, not chaos.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, because I think back, the times, going back to my history in CarMax, like, we would have some hopping Saturdays, right? 150 appraisals going on, 10 buyers running around trying to buy everything they touch, selling 60 to 70 cars at the store I was at. And it was all done with calmness, right? And I was talking to Brian Kramer about this, who was on the show last week, and we were getting ready for All Things Used Cars yesterday. And it dawned on me as we're talking, and I said, Brian, it really, like what we're talking about is simple. It's all about cars, right? It's all about cars, right? And he goes, yeah, of course. And I said, well, no, it's about clarity, accountability, results, and standards, right? That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So thank you for answering that. I think for the people who are listening to this, that's super, super helpful for them to understand. I don't want to take a step back though, because I hear you say it, and we always hear you say it, right? Like I'm a husband to one, father of 9, right?
Yeah.
Not probably working on 10. but
maybe I'm gonna have to stay up a little bit later than I have been this year if I'm gonna get a 10th one now.
There you go.
Up pretty early.
So I say that because the thing I think about, when that's your identity, right? Like you don't come out and say, hey, I'm Glenn Lundy, I'm Mr. 800%. A lot of people know you as that, but your identity that you start every conversation with is, hey, I'm husband to 1, father to 9. And so I have to ask the question, were you always that way? Was that always your identity? Or, was your identity at some point, hey, I'm selling a bunch of cars and that's who I am?
Yeah, man. That first season that I was telling you about, where the dealership didn't grow at all, I was there 8 years. I was a car guy through and through. Out there, out west, we're open on Sundays. Nice part about the South over here is, we're closed on Sundays. But, I had 2 Sundays off a month for 8 years, no vacations, and it was bell to bell every single day. And I was a car guy. And in the midst of that, the reason I got started in the car business is because I had gotten a girl that I barely knew pregnant with my oldest, my first daughter. And so I jumped into the car business so that I could provide. And ultimately, a car guy is all that I was. And when she was 2 years old, her mother and I split up. And then when she was 6 years old, I ended up losing custody of her. And at the time, it's her mom's fault. Her mom's a jerk. She's a this. It was always a victim. It was never, maybe I had something to do with that. But I will never forget. So for the next 8 years, I did not have any communications with my daughter from age 6 to age 14. And, for her, age 6 to age 14. And it was brutal, bro. It was brutal. And so when I met my wife, who I barely knew, and she got pregnant, seems to be a trend with me. When I met my wife and she got pregnant, I kind of had this okay, wait a minute, bro. All right, here we are. God's giving you a second chance, 10 years in between. God's giving you a second chance. So let's do this the right way this time. Let's prioritize faith and family. Let's make that the priority, right? And then let's build all the other stuff, in the space between. Let's make sure that we prioritize that. And so that's the way I've built my life now. But the reason I say it all the time, I'm a husband to 1, father to 9, right? The reason I make that declaration in my planner every day when I write down my gratitudes, or when I write down my goals, every single day I write down, I am an amazing husband and father. I write that down every single day. The reason I do it is because I know me well enough to know that there is a piece of me that could not prioritize my family. Like, it exists in me, right? If you're an alcoholic, it exists. If you were an alcoholic 20 years ago, you haven't had a drink in 20 years, you still know that there's a piece of you that potentially could go off the deep end, right? And so it's a declaration to remind myself every single day that we can self-sabotage in this life, and it's very quick. And as soon as we take our eyes off the ball, things can go downhill fast. And I've seen it too many times, especially in this industry.
Yeah.
And so it's a reminder to me. And I want people to know right out the gate, bro, hey, I'm married and I got a bunch of babies. They come first. If we're going to do business, just know I'm married and I got a bunch of babies, plain and simple. Right. So right out the gate, reminder for me. And it's also a great way to introduce yourself to others so they know where your priorities are.
Glenn, I really appreciate you being so vulnerable and sharing that. Like I didn't know that, right? I didn't know that at all. That must have been very, very difficult for you. It must have been. The fact that you are willing to share it with us, it means a lot, right? I mean, it really, really does. It shows that I think you were humbled, right?
Oh, yeah.
We all go through it. We all go through that time or times. Sometimes it needs to happen more than once when we are humbled, pruned. Again, I refer to some of the words in the Bible, right? Like that's how he works in us. I want to shift it just a little bit because we're almost 50 minutes in here, and we're
already
off pretty soon, which we probably could talk all day. But as we get towards closing this out, I want to hear your perspective of 2026, right? Let's talk about the car business, right? What do you see happening in the car business in 2026? Today is the 17th of January when we're recording this. What do you see happening? If you had a crystal ball and you could predict and give dealers advice for this year, what do you see coming? I've got my opinions, but I want to hear yours first.
Yeah, so the wealth gap is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The rich are going to get richer and the poor are going to get poorer. And what I mean by that, and I've been talking about this for a few years, it's part of the reason we created 800% Club. Here in Little Paris, Kentucky, where we grew this dealership, and other places all around the world, or all around the United States, probably the world, we've seen this happen before. So Walmart came out of nowhere, right? Walmart came in, and before Walmart, like 93% of groceries were bought at private mom and pop shops. And then now, fast forward with Walmart, it's like 3% of groceries are bought at mom and pop shops. And so here's what we've been seeing over the last few years, right? Is we've been seeing more consolidation. We've been seeing big companies like Carvana, CarMax, so on and so forth. We've been seeing the traditional, been in business for 60 years, selling 75 cars a month, dealerships getting gobbled up. And before you could do that, like you could just operate on 75 cars a month and everything was great. But that is no longer an option. And so as we see these things happening, it's been happening for a while, but now with the addition of AI and these big organizations that have resources and so on and so forth,
and money,
now more than ever, these small stores are in massive danger if they do not grow in volume as well as profitability. We have to put, like, you've got to get the pipeline filled with opportunities so that you can build relationships. The stores that survived, right? If you look at the stores that have survived the Walmart wave, they have volume. They have a big customer base and usually a big footprint. So volume solves everything. I'm a firm believer of that. Volume solves everything. So in 2026, I see more than ever small stores as expense structures increase, which everything's more expensive now. We all know that. As expense increases, competition increases, and large organizations start deploying dollars at massive levels to integrate AI and become more efficient. If Frank's got a store that's AI'd out and it's out there reaching out to 100 customers a second trying to buy their cars, and Todd's got his store over here that's not AI'd out, and he's got Fred, who's bought cars for 47 years, over at the auction, trying to buy 3 cars a week or whatever. you just can't stay in the game, dude. You
Right.
cannot stay in the game. So unfortunately, I see a bloodbath for small, low volume, independently owned dealerships. And I see massive growth and opportunity for dealerships that are willing to put in the systems and processes, do the work, develop the culture, and grow their volume. You got to get to that 200 car, 250 car mark, like, to be able to stay in this game moving forward. That's my belief.
The thing is too, right? And again, I had a small country Chevy store, right, back in the day in the early 90s when I first got into the business formally after I got out of college. And, it's 40, 50 cars a month. That's what my dad was doing, right? And we blew it up, right? We blew it up. We were doing 200 cars a month out of that little Chevy store in Chittenden, New York. It can be done.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah. And it doesn't matter where you're located. It really doesn't. It just takes all the things that you talked about, right? That's what it takes. But it starts at the top, right? And, all the stuff you talked about today I agree with 1,000%, right? But
800%, Todd, 800%.
800%, excuse me. Yes. I agree with 800%. But if you don't have buy-in from the top, right? If you're an owner or a general manager, and if you just think you're going to bring a guy in like Glenn to basically change your business, but you're not willing to change yourself, you're wasting your time and your money. Yeah. And I had a conversation with a guy yesterday, and he wanted me to come and help him with his used car business this year. And we talked about a lot of operational things. And I said to him, look, are you ready to be accountable, right? What kind of culture do you have in your dealership? Do you have a culture of accountability in your stores? Do you hold your people accountable? Do your people hold the people that report to them? Do they hold them accountable? Like, what is your culture? I said, because if you don't have a culture of accountability, or you're not willing and being honest with yourself and willing to change, for me to help hold you accountable and you to help hold your people accountable, because I can't be in your store every day. I'm not going to go there and run it for you, right? Then guys like me, guys like you, these other, the Tommy Gibbs of the world, the Frank Knoxes of the world, or the software vendor or whoever, it's never going to work unless you have really leadership, number one, who's honest, humble, and willing to have accountability in the organization. Straight up.
That's why I only work with owners and GMs. That's who I work with. And then I've got, my team that works with finance managers, sales managers, but we start at the top. People, when I first started this company, and nobody really, it's still very hard to get a lot of owners to understand, like, they think we're sales training. We are not sales training. Now, do I have some sales training modules that we've built into our platform to help your salespeople? Absolutely. We want to help everybody in the dealership. You cannot become a member of 800% Club as a salesperson or as a finance person or as a sales manager. You have to be an owner or a GM. And I work with the owners and the GMs. And then from there, we can actually drive results, because I've seen it, obviously nothing against sales training. I think it's really, really, really important. But 73% of dealerships in this country sell the same amount of cars that they sold 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So sales training alone doesn't work. GM training is where we have to start. And then the sales training is supplemental on top of that.
And one thing you said, Glenn, that if I picked up on this, is that, in order for you to grow your organization, right, it's going to have to start with the buy side, right? To come full circle, right? Like, it's going to have to start with acquisitions, and you're going to have to figure out how to scale your acquisitions very fast, right? Because right now, like, one stat I heard, and I got this from Brian Kramer, Carvana bought 60% of their inventory using AI, right? That's huge. CarMax is quickly following suit with some rumblings that I'm hearing, and if you're reading the press clippings, they've had some layoffs. They got rid of, their CEC, or they scaled that down because they're using AI to reach out to customers. Like, AI is coming, folks. And if you're not embracing it, you're going to get left behind. And that's one of the reasons, like, I love Auto Acquire, that we started with this mission of going and plugging AI into dealerships, because that outreach is what matters. Like you said it. If I could have a tool and a system that can reach out to 1,000 customers, and Bill's Autos down the street is reaching out to 4 customers or 4 cars at the auction, well, who's going to have ultimate success? Right now, the thing that Todd said, and let's not ignore that, is that the system itself, you going into a dealership, the platform, Todd going into a dealership, you can't do it for the dealer. The dealer principal, the GM, they have to want this, and they have to embrace what it is that is coming to the table for them through 800%, whether it's Auto Acquire, whether it's Todd Consulting, whether it's Unique Auto. Like, you've got to embrace the change in order to have true success. I know we're running out of time. Your wife, when I called you last night, she said, "Hey, look, if you get Glenn on, it's going to go longer than an hour."
She did.
And I feel like we absolutely could keep going longer and longer, because there's so much to unpack. And I know we would love to have you back on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to have you back.
Again.
Yeah, man.
But as we get here to the closing, we talked about the outlook for 2026, and I know you said that, hey, there could be some pain coming for smaller independents, right?
Privately owned, I guess, would be the word.
Right. Yeah.
So, family owned, that type of thing.
When you think about, so knowing that, what could you leave the audience with that, hey, look, this is what winning in 2026 looks like. This is what will help you to not be in that painful situation.
Yeah, used cars, man. It's all about used cars. It's the only thing
Amen.
that you can control. And we learned that back in 2011, man. We learned that the manufacturer who we love our manufacturers. We learned that the manufacturer does not give a flying flute nanny about us. Period. Hands down. Simple truth. They have a business to run and operate, and they're going to do what's in the best interest of that business at all times. They are not going to do what's in the best interest for the dealer at all times. And it's okay. Like, I'm not saying they're bad people for that. Like, if I hire somebody to run my business, I want them to act in the best interest of my business, not somebody else's business, right? Like, that's a fair thing. Once you realize the manufacturer is not necessarily your friend, they're a partner, and we can do things together, and there are benefits, but they don't care about what the end result, what happens to you. They care about the end result that happens to them. That's why you cannot build your empire through somebody else, something that somebody else has control over. You just can't. Hey, everybody, go do EVs. You're going to spend a bunch of money on EVs. Everything's going to be EV by 2030. Go build your EV, put in your EV stations, put in your things. All right, boom. All right, you got it? Okay, everybody in place? All right, yeah, we're not doing EVs anymore. Just so you guys know, EV thing's gone. It's off the table. It's not happening. We just spent $19 billion to back up on that. Oh, you invested in that? Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about your freaking luck, right? We just see these things happen. So you can't build an empire on somebody else's control. So with used cars, man, and there was no used car shortage during COVID. There was only a new car shortage. There's never been a used car shortage. There's always opportunity for you to control it. You control what brands you want. You control how much inventory you want. You control how you source it, how you get it, how you merchandise it. You can do whatever you want on the website with it. Right? Manufacturers like, cars got to look like this, got to have this logo, it's got to be this color. And most of that stuff sucks, right? So used cars is the game. You got to get in the game. You got to let go of this whole 30-day, I'm a new car franchise mentality. It's the only way to grow and succeed in the years moving forward, all through used.
And there you have it, folks.
Talking my language.
There you have it. Used cars is the path forward in 2026.
And I will say this, Frank, real quick. When you grow your used cars, just so you know, you franchise dealers that love your manufacturers, when you grow used, your new car sales will increase also.
Yep. 100%.
Because it's much easier to convert someone from a used to a new than it is from a new to a used. So if I have tons of used car customers flying through the door, I'm going to have tons of opportunities to sell more new. Yeah. So we're not neglecting new. We're feeding new by focusing on used.
I love it. I love it, man. Glenn, it certainly was a pleasure to have you. Always love talking to you and hearing your insight. This is super beneficial. I think a lot of people are going to listen and take a lot away from this. The last thing I wanna just throw out there is, I know NADA is coming up. If you're going to be out there, I know Glenn is speaking, Todd is speaking. Please share with the audience, Todd, what day and time are you speaking? And Glenn, if you could follow that up, that'd be great.
I'm speaking Wednesday at 12:45. I don't remember what room number it is, but you can look it up if you're going to NADA. And I'm not talking about anything to do operationally. I'm talking about culture, and I'm talking about everything we talked about really for the first 45 minutes of this conversation about having the right culture in a dealership. Because if you don't, there's consequences. There's consequences to your health. There's consequences to your organization. There's consequences to yourself spiritually. And we've seen in this business how the grind has ruined people, has ruined families. The hours have just really worn people out in so many ways. And like, that's what I'm talking about. So it's not about best practices with appraisals or any of that. Mine's about people, right? So if you're concerned about your people, come and hear me speak at NADA. I'd love to just share some of my experiences and, maybe some suggestions for 2026 to help your organization be better with people. That's what I'm talking about.
Awesome. Glenn.
What about you, Glenn? What are you talking about, Glenn? 800% or what?
So I'm on Tuesday at 1:15. I don't remember the room, but I'm on Tuesday at 1:15. Also, my guy, Sam Cox, who was my general sales manager when I was running a store, he's speaking at 12:15. Also, I think 12:15, right about an hour before me. So he's speaking out there also. Me, what will I be speaking about? It's a loaded question, Todd, because I'm a little bit different when it comes to these types of things. So I'm a very empathic person. So I have submitted a slide deck around what it takes to grow 800% over to NADA, because they require you to submit a slide deck like 7 months before the event.
Oh, I know. I did it.
What will I end up speaking on? I will end up speaking on whatever I believe that audience needs most in order for them to be successful in 2026. So it'll start with a little 800% story, but then it'll just go like this, man. That's kind of how I roll. So I just want to serve people and help as many as humanly possible, because I truly do believe that there's a lot of weight on these third and fourth generation dealers that their dads and their grandpas never had to deal with, man. They never had to deal with this internet stuff, this AI stuff, this Carvana stuff, this car.
They didn't have to deal with these things,
right? They
right
didn't have to deal with the phones, the reviews. They didn't deal with none of that, man. So these third and fourth generations, they have a lot of weight on their shoulders. They're trying to carry that family name. And I just want to help as many of them stay in the game as humanly possible, because I truly believe in the humans behind the industry more than I do the machine itself.
Awesome. Fantastic. So on the behalf of Todd Caputo, Frank Knox, we are the buy side. Glenn, we thank you. We cherish our relationship with you. Guys, tune in next week when we have David Long on the show, who will be talking about all things buy center. So you're not going to want to miss that next week. So thank you guys. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll be coming at you soon. Take care.
Thanks again.
Thank you guys.